Hi, my name is Shahidra Kogel, and I'm the Director of Clinical Programs for Frontline Crisis Response Solutions. And you are joining us for the Trauma and Grief Recovery Group for Suicide Loss orientation. First, we want to acknowledge the courage that it takes to reach out for support. And although the suicide death of a friend or family member is not our choice, we are faced with the need to confront life-changing grief and trauma without knowing how or where to process this type of loss experience. So on behalf of the FCRS Board of Directors, our team of clinicians, chaplains, and peer supporters, we extend our heartfelt condolences to you and those dear to you following the recent suicide loss of your loved one. And we thank you for considering us as an option to walk with you through this difficult time. This orientation video is to offer details and guidelines for the group virtual process, and most importantly, to provide you with the information you will need to provide your informed consent to participate in this group. Frontline Crisis Response has been hosting survivors of suicide loss groups since 2016, and we operate as a 501c3 nonprofit. Our team is made up of chaplains, mental health providers, peer supporters who offer crisis response services, emotional trauma care, spiritual care, and of course, peer support through our SOS loss groups. All of these options are really meant to help bring hope and healing in times of deepest need. So just a quick overview for today's video of what we'll be covering. We're going to talk about goals and objectives of the group, who this group is for, ultimately the group process, the curriculum that is set up, our group format inclusive of the dates and times of our sessions, as well as how to access the virtual sessions, along with sharing who our group facilitators are, a little bit about our peer support team, the cost and the process for registration, and then finally, how to contact us for more information, for questions, and even for peer support. So let's jump right into it. Our primary mission for our SOS loss groups is to make sure that no one walks alone, which is why we offer a safe environment for all of our attendees so that they feel safe to share about their experiences, their thoughts, and their feelings. All of our groups also incorporate psychoeducation. This is a journey that no one plans for or we expect to happen. And so it's really important to have an understanding about the unique grief process, what trauma looks like, and how to cope through and recover through this very difficult time. Support is all around. As we talked about, we do offer multidisciplinary team members from mental health support, chaplaincy support, as well as our peer supporters who are at minimum 2 years outside of their loss of their loved one. And then finally, what makes this 10-week group very unique is that we offer really a hybrid component of therapy through EMDR support, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. The goal of this group is to address the unique aspects of the survivor's experience of trauma reactions and the grief process. The very nature of suicide, witnessing a suicide, or learning that death by suicide has occurred qualifies as a traumatic event that can lead to normal but disabling symptoms. These symptoms are often grouped in with the grief process and can be often really confusing for the survivor of suicide loss. So when we talk about trauma and grief, we really look at them as separate processes and how to allow yourself the time you need to recover from both. This group was designed for new loss survivors, meaning you have experienced this devastating type of loss within the last 2 years. It's not specific or limited to a type of relationship. Attendees may express experiences of a loss of a spouse or a significant other. Another may be here processing the loss of a sibling or a child, or maybe even a parent or a friend. It's important to note that each person may be in a different stage of their grief and loss process. It is also important to note that traumatic reactions based on the attendee's history and their experiences may vary, and that's normal. No two people are alike in their grief or traumatic reactions, even though you may relate to each other. So within this group format, we really hope to give you an opportunity to walk through this journey with others who get it and who won't judge you as they're also healing as well. Next, I want to share a little bit about the group's curriculum. We will incorporate peer support with psychoeducation, mindfulness, and therapeutic strategies like group EMDR protocols to help decrease trauma symptoms while processing the unique grief and loss of a loved one. So this is a different type of group in that it is a hybrid group that integrates not only that piece of support, but also therapy. The first 5 sessions will use Alan Wolfott's book and journal called Understanding Your Suicide Grief, 10 Emotional Touchstones for Finding Hope and Healing Your Heart. The session breakdown is shown on the PowerPoint. The first 20 minutes will be really focusing on the group topic. That next 20 minutes will be group discussion, and then followed by a nice chunk of the remainder of the session for group support. We realize that having an opportunity to tell your story and to tell your story again helps you move through that grief and trauma process. And so we do allow ample time for group cohesiveness and for support. For the second 5 weeks, that session breakdown may be a little bit different just because we're using a therapeutic protocol. The first 2 sessions will focus on relaxation training, as well as really talking about what EMDR is, how it works, and what it will look like to prepare you for our group sessions. The last 3 sessions dedicated to this 10 weeks will be actually activating group EMDR processing. This is something that is not necessarily offered in other groups, and so it does help decrease traumatic symptoms, and we're really excited about being able to offer this as a part of this group in a virtual format. You will also receive materials. So the books that we use, you'll receive by mail. So they will actually be hardcover books as well as the journals. And then our grief and trauma guidebook that is specific to our FCRS loss groups, that provides handouts and different resources, book lists that will come to you in a digital format. I want to share that group dates and times, all of our group sessions fall on Sunday evenings. This next session for the fall will begin on September 25th and it will go through December 4th. For 10 sessions. The only group that we will miss, that's a scheduled miss, is during the week of Thanksgiving. Session times will go from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Again, we will meet on Sundays. We do allow for members, in the event that there is an emergency or there's no way to get out of missing the group, an opportunity to make up that group. We will be recording the lessons that are focused on, the readings or the EMDR training portions. However, we will not be recording group support members or the sections where they are talking, just to protect confidentiality of all those who are in attendance. Like I mentioned, these are 10 weeks. We invite you again to check your schedule to make sure that you can attend all groups. If for some reason you're not able to make the group again, we'll provide the recorded lesson for you. We'll also give you an opportunity to follow up with a peer supporter that was present during that group, or the facilitator that facilitated the group that you may have missed. Again, only 2 sessions are allotted for to be missed, because we do want you to be present, and to recognize that your presence does add to the value of the group. Next, I would like to introduce you to our group facilitators. First, Gail Yandell is the Executive Director of Training Development and is an advanced senior chaplain for the International Fellowship of Chaplains. Gail holds a degree in education and social work and attended B.H. Carroll Theological Seminary. She travels across our nation and internationally, training chaplains on the topics of grief and loss, trauma-informed care, as well as best practices in serving their communities through chaplaincy. Gail is also a survivor of suicide loss, and we are so glad to have her be a part of this trauma and grief group. She will be facilitating the first 5 group sessions focused on unique grief and the experience of suicide loss survivors. The next facilitator is yours truly. My name is Shahidra Kogel, and I am the Director of Clinical Programs for Frontline Crisis Response Solutions. I specialize in trauma recovery, and I'm an EMDR trained provider. I've worked in the mental health field since 2007, and I currently own a group practice here based in North Texas. I have served as one of the SOS Loss Group facilitators since 2015, and I've had the privilege of supporting individuals and families through this unique journey of suicide, grief, and trauma through counseling support as well. I will be facilitating the last 5 weeks of this group focused on trauma recovery and the group EMDR process. One of the unique things about our grief and trauma groups, as well as our peer support groups, is that our team is multidisciplinary. Our peer support team are survivors of suicide loss who are more than 2 years outside of their loss and have gotten to a place in their journey where they have made a decision to give back, to share their story, and to walk alongside others who are going through the wilderness, the struggles maybe that they experienced, and want to share their wisdom, their knowledge, their experiences with those who may not know what's ahead. And so we welcome Lori, Pete, Edgar, and Denise. You will see them on different calls throughout our 10 weeks. Although they may not all be on the same time, they all carry a heart and a spirit that is very encouraging and very hopeful, as well as very honest and transparent. And so we are so excited to have them joining us on this journey as well. I would like to just take a moment to share a little bit about the FCRS difference. Survivors of suicide loss groups are offered across our nation. Some of those groups are offered locally to you, and you can find them on AFSP.org. The American Foundation of Suicide Prevention lists these groups to be able to offer resources to survivors of suicide loss so that they do not walk this journey alone. Generally, when you go to the directory, you will find groups that are a majority peer facilitated, meaning they are led by someone who has lost a loved one to suicide. Peer supporters may be trained, some of them may not be. These groups may also be facilitated by a mental health provider. The focus is typically on the unique grief process and just generalized support. They may be offered as weekly groups, bi-weekly, bi-monthly support, or even as a monthly group. These groups may also be specific to a type of loss, and they are typically an open group format, which means that there may be different attendees at each one of your sessions. When we were looking at offering a trauma and grief recovery group, we wanted to really find a space that was not occupied, really to offer a different level of support to help people along the way. And so we created the Trauma and Grief Recovery Group, and there are a few differences. This group is facilitated by a mental health professional as well as a chaplain. And we also incorporate peer support in each one of our meetings. Although they are not peer facilitated, that peer support component is valuable, and it is present at all of our groups. Next, we really focus on not only the grief process, but we focus also on the unique trauma recovery and the unique trauma experiences that people who experience suicide loss have. This is also curriculum based as a hybrid group. Like I mentioned before, this incorporates support, psychoeducation, and therapy. This group is time limited. We will be meeting for 10 consecutive weeks. Minus the week of Thanksgiving. It will be a closed group format, which means once we close registration, the attendees who are present are will be the only members participating in the group. And then lastly, we do offer another layer with individual peer support as well as chaplain support that may be available outside of the group sessions that are at no additional cost for our attendees. I'd like to share a little bit about registration and cost. To complete the online registration form, I invite you to go ahead and scan the QR code that you see on your screen. Once we receive your registration form, we will utilize the contact information provided, your phone number or your email address, to reach out to you to conduct an initial interview, just to make sure that all of your questions are answered and to make sure that you are a good fit for the group. Once you complete the registration form and that interview has been conducted and there is a green light to move forward, you will receive an invoice for the cost of attendance. The cost of attendance is $400 for all 10 sessions or $40 per session. It's important to know what is incorporated into that cost. We do incorporate cost of materials, guidebook, facilitation of the grief group, and EMDR related modules. The cost is also per household. Because this is a virtual group, this group may also include people who are in your home who may be available during those group times. So this may include a spouse, a significant other, an adult child, a roommate, someone who is already living in the home, who may also be going through this unique grief and process with you. It's also important for us to let you know that for any additional members in the household, we would also conduct an interview with them as well. Furthermore, we will send you materials once that registration is completed. And we just ask that you do not share the group link, any access codes, or anything that we send to people outside of your household, as we want to keep this group cohesive and confidential. We do desire to support those who are committed to being here and who are authorized to be here. We do ask that you attend all 10 groups, again, based on the group dates. As a follow-up, make sure that all of the dates work. If you do know someone who could benefit from this group, we can definitely walk with them through the same process and get them registered either for this upcoming group or for future sessions. Finally, I'd like to share our contact information. If you do have additional questions, we invite you to reach out to us via email at virtualsosgroups@gmail.com. You can also give us a call at 214-865-6710 to find out more about our website and social media pages and resources that we have available. We invite you to visit our link tree at Frontline Crisis Response. Thanks for tuning in.